Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the GFS, the GM, the ECMWF, the GFS and ECMWF Ensembles, and then we'll have a look at the 5-day UK Met Office run, have a look at precipitation temperature, and also have a look at the weather warnings as we do have a yellow fog warning in force. Now, we've had a lot of high pressure around at the moment, and as we said over the last few days, that is going to continue, and on today's models we're still seeing high pressure through the next sort of 2 weeks or so. The question is, will it retrogress? Will it move towards western areas, which could allow us starting to go a bit colder, because it's very unlikely that this high pressure sits exactly where it is over the top of the UK for 2 weeks. It's very likely to be moving around, and we are seeing signs on especially the GFS and some of the longer term ensemble members that we could see this high pressure move its centre slightly further westwards, which could mean we could see more northerly incursions toward the end of the month. And we are seeing that on quite a few ensemble members, so we'll have a look at that in more detail in this video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Also check out the podcast I released earlier on the winter of 1962-1963, and if we will ever see something like that again, and I can assure you, we're not going to be seeing anything like that this winter by any means. So yeah, do check that out if you are interested. So if we do have a look at the latest from the GFS, you can see, of course, high pressure over the top of the UK. Now, in yesterday's video, we were thinking there was potential air pollution issues, especially in the London area, and there were some warnings put out by the Met Office, and it didn't make its way into mainstream media last night. Luckily, the air pollution wasn't as bad as forecasted. It was forecast to be sort of 10 out of 10, very high on the index, but only got up to around 7 or 8 out of 10, so wasn't quite as high as forecasted, which is very good, but it's still some quite high amounts of pollutants, especially in the London area. But we're going to see a bit more of a breeze tomorrow, as you can see, a bit more of a southerly wind. Those isobars are moving back in, so a bit more of a breeze, which is going to be mixing up the air, which is going to allow those pollutants to spread away, and it's going to mean the fog patches shouldn't linger as much tomorrow, but of course some areas, especially further northwards and eastwards away from the winds, could see those last, but there still will be an overnight frost, widespread overnight frost tonight, and fog patches tonight, and we do have a warning in force for that. Now you can see high pressure just reinforces itself. This was when we were looking at potential northerly wind, but you can see that air just goes into Scandinavia, and we just stay under the high pressure. There is the potential, maybe towards the middle of next week, in 5 days' time, we do see a bit of a northerly incursion. We're seeing that on quite a few of the models, just for some colder air to sink southwards, but GFS run here actually is quite on the colder end of the spectrum. Majority of the runs just have sort of the 0 degree isotherm moving through. A few have the -5 moving through. That includes the operational run. So it does look like colder air will be moving through, but nothing majorly cold. Just maybe drop the temperatures down by a degree or two, and maybe give more widespread overnight frost, especially further northwards as well. So nothing too crazy. Just instead of being 6, 7, 8 degrees in the day, it may only be 4 or 5 degrees. So not a big difference, but still chillier northerly winds potentially with that. Then the high pressure really just sits around once again, and that continues all the way up to day 10. And as we see with the other models, the models are going to be pretty much the same really, with just high pressure over the top of the UK, just sitting there. However, we are seeing a sign beyond day 10 on the GFS, so it is in the uncertain time frame, but it is signs on this latest GFS run, and on the earlier runs, of the centre of the high to move out a bit further westwards. Now, if we do run back all the way to now, you can see those darker oranges and reds are over the top of the UK, and that is what we see over the next sort of week or so. You see those darker colours all over the top of the UK. However, if we move out to about 10 to 14 days out, you can see those darker reds are shifting further westwards, and this is retrogression, where the high pressure is moving against the general zonal flow of west-east westerly winds. So we're seeing this high pressure potentially retrogress towards the end of this run, and right towards the end of it, we do go into quite a potent northerly wind, and it would be really quite cold in there. You can see -10 line moving through, so really quite bitterly cold within that, and that's something we have to keep an eye on in the longer term. There's potential there, as we'll have a look at the ensembles, but again, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, just simply because we were seeing a bit of a pattern like this earlier this week for this coming week, but it never came off. So I don't want to say anything too major at this stage, but there are signs in the longer term that some of the models are trying to get that high pressure to ridge further westwards. And remember, this GFS run isn't getting majorly far northwards. You see the top of the high pressure only just skims Greenland, but it's because it's much further westwards, which means all that cold air across Scandinavia comes flooding towards England, the UK. So this is a scenario where we don't need massive blocking because we've got this big high pressure system in the mid-Atlantic giving us northerly winds. It wouldn't be a majorly sustained cold spell because I would suspect the jet stream would flatten this after a period of time, but it would be pretty bitterly cold for a few days, and I mean that's better than nothing at this stage where winter really hasn't arrived for many areas. So just hints in the longer term, don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but there's potential there of seeing some retrogression in the longer term, and it's something we have to keep our eyes peeled on. So if you do have a look at the GM run, it now only goes up to day 10, so we won't see the retrogression too much in this, but we will see some hints, perhaps. You can see high pressure just over the top of the UK consistently over the next few days, definitely centred further southwards and eastwards, so more likely to be mixing of air further northwards and westwards, similar to this week, with the coldest conditions in the far southeast, 5, 6, 7 degrees, and frost overnight, further northwards, maybe 8, 9, 10 degrees, and temperatures hovering above freezing overnight. We do see that northern incursion from the GEM run. Again, don't want to look too much into this because it's not getting too much support from the ensembles, but again, you can see the -5 line moves through for some, for high pressure topples, and we do go more into a westerly flow. And this is where we're seeing those hints of a bit of retrogression, because you can see that high pressure is now positioned further westwards, and we are into more of a north to northwesterly flow. So similar to the GFS in the longer term, with that higher pressure trying to shift further westwards, and that could be a pattern we see in the longer term. Not going to put us in a sustained cold spell, because if we want to see sustained cold spell, we need this high pressure over Iceland, Greenland, or Scandinavia, but it could turn us colder, and because it's sort of midwinter, any really northerly or northwesterly wind is cold enough to give us potentially wintry conditions, especially with temperatures being pretty frigid on the ground. The ground is frozen in many areas in the south. I mean, I was out today, and areas that don't see the sun are completely frozen. There's some permafrost in a few areas near me in the south, so it is quite cold out there. And again, we wouldn't need too much cold upper air conditions this time of year, the -5 line really, to get falling snow. And with the ground cold, it will mean those surface conditions are primed. So we don't need anything major for snow and cold conditions in January. So even a subtle shift in this high pressure, this retrogression further westwards, could give us something colder. But we'll have to see again. Not looking any short term, definitely 7 days, 10 days beyond, towards the last sort of 10 days of January. That's where all eyes are on at this stage. Could not come off, but at this stage, we've just got to hope that we do see a change. It's going to change at some point, and I'm hoping that it's into a cold pattern, because this high pressure is looking like it's going to linger. So it's going to be around for the next few weeks, just where it's positioned. So we do have a look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, it's very similar. High pressure just over the top of the UK, a bit of a northern incursion next week, but nothing too cold on the ECMWF run, which, as I said yesterday, has been the most pessimistic model, so I'm more inclined to believe it, as it's been a bit more realistic. And towards the 10-day time frame, we're seeing a lot of blocking from the ECMWF run. If we do have a look at the Northern Hemisphere view, you can see how the blocking is sort of splitting the tropospheric polar vortex. You normally see these purples all connected, but you can see purple and blues towards eastern Russia, northern Canada and the United States, bitterly cold across the United States. Look at those upper air temperatures, frigid, polar vortex really arriving there, and another lobe towards Scandinavia. So blocking on the ECMWF run at day 10, and not showing bitterly cold conditions for the UK, but if we did run this on another couple of days, I would be surprised if we didn't go much colder with the amount of blocking over the North Pole. So interesting signs from the ECMWF, but nothing too excited at this stage, because they're not showing anything majorly cold, just a bit of a change in the pattern. So we do now have a look at the GFS Ensembles. We'll have a look at the 6Z, as the 12Z hasn't fully come out, and you can see the temperatures are generally around or slightly above average in the south over the next couple of, next week to 10 days, and that's what we saw on the operational runs. But because of the inversion, temperatures will be around, hovering below and above average at times, but I'm more inclined to say below average, especially with the overnight frost. So temperatures overall over the next 7 days will probably be slightly below average, maybe a degree below average, with highs averaging around 5, 6, 7 degrees, and lows around freezing. So pretty chilly conditions, but I think a lot of people like this weather with a lot of sunshine and frosty, pleasant days. But we do see a bit of a change here or there, some showers at times, maybe towards Sunday a few showers, but we'll have a look at the UKMO run, see what that is showing. And in the long term, as I said, we do see in around 10 days beyond time, a signal, a trend for that retrogression and potentially colder runs. And you can see right towards the end of the run, the last like 3 or 4 days of the run, of course, in the long-term time frame, sort of 12, 13 days time, so very uncertain, but we are seeing quite a consistent signal from these models to be seeing potentially much colder conditions. Again, the average getting down close to -5, and quite a few runs clustered around that -5 to -10 area. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, of course, but we can't expect anything major at this stage. Just some trends we're seeing in the models this evening. If we have a look at the sea level pressure, you can see very high. Some trending lower in the longer term, and that's because of that retrogression moving westwards, and more low pressure coming in from the northwest, which could be more wintry. So keep an eye on that in longer term, but again, nothing too major at this stage. 2 metre temperatures, you can see generally in the London area. It will be more localised, there will be up and downs locally, but generally temperatures in many areas of England and Wales are going to be around 6-7 degree highs, potentially next week lower than that, maybe 4 or 5 degrees with the colder air, potentially if we see that bit of a northerly wind in sort of 5-6 days time. And lows are around freezing. They do overestimate the lows here because they don't the ensemble members don't particularly do well with the inversions. They don't forecast the inversion too well, so they predict temperatures around 2-3 degrees when it's actually around -1, -2 degrees. So don't believe the lows, but the highs are reasonably accurate, with highs around 6, 7, 8 degrees over the next week or two, so hovering around slightly below and slightly above average at times. So nothing too crazy for January, but of course a lot of people will enjoy these conditions, but a lot of people would want some wintry weather around as well. Now if we do have a look at the ECMWF Ensembles, which will show this retrogression pattern really quite well in the longer term. Now if we do run out to day 7, because it is pretty shored up now from to day 5, day 7 time, but at day 7 you can see generally just a slight subtle bit of uncertainty between how much that low pressure gets in from the north, and that will decide how much colder air. You can see 60.8% of more high pressure in control, so that colder air staying well to our east. Another 20, including the control and operational run, 39.2%, have maybe some colder air coming in. So wouldn't be crazy cold, would be around freezing or -5 at Angel THB in that gap. So nothing majorly cold, but cold enough, as I said, to keep temperatures maybe highs around 4-5 degrees and lows in well below freezing for quite a few areas instead of just the south where we're seeing the inversion. Beyond that, today 10, you can see a bit of retrogression going on 14 of the models. High pressure more out towards the Atlantic, more of a northwesterly flow at day 10. So that will be a lot more inclined to bring colder weather. There will be a lot of cold pooling within this lobe of tropospheric polar vortex, and we'll be seeing northwesterly winds coming in from Greenland, a shorter sea track than if it was coming out of northeast Canada. So it would be pretty chilly. Wouldn't be surprised to see the -5 or even lower than that come through, and it would give maybe some winteriness, especially northwards and westwards. Another 13, including the operational, which is high pressure over the top of the UK, similar to what we have now. Another 10, very similar pattern, just a lower strength of high pressure. Another 8 with high pressure moving towards our west, and that could turn into what we're seeing in these 14 further up, and then another 6 just have high pressure over the top of the UK, extending towards Scandinavia, could start to bring the winds in from the east, but again it's only 6 runs are doing only 11.8%, so very low probability of that. But there is a bit of uncertainty at day 10, all high pressure involved, but just slight different shifts in that high pressure positioning. But definitely is a good 40, maybe 50% showing some retrogression in this higher pressure. If we go to 300 hours, again we do see quite a similar pattern. We have 15 with just high pressure over the top of the UK, perhaps to our west, more of a northerly flow, but again, nothing too majorly cold. Another 10 just have high pressure over the top of the UK, again, shifting further northwards and westwards. And this would be allowing more northerly, maybe northwesterly flows, so a lot colder, could be wintry as well with that. Another 10 have high pressure again, further out in the Atlantic, would be pretty chilly northerly winds with that. Again, could be transient, but would be a lot more interesting and colder than now. Another 9 have westerly winds taking over. Again, a minority, but an option potentially in the longer term. And then another 7 have high pressure over the top of the UK, with a lot more easterly winds potentially with that, but no majorly easterly winds. It would have to get a bit further northwards for that, and it is battling the low pressure in off the Atlantic. So we'll have to see exactly how that does play out. Right towards the end of the run, 360 hours, you can see again 15 high pressure retrogressing out towards northeast Canada, southern Greenland, and that would be going into a northwesterly or northerly flow. Another 10 have high pressure over the top of the UK. Another 10 again it retrogressing further out into the Atlantic, northerly or northeasterly flows. Another 9, again retrogressing out into the Atlantic towards northeast Canada, northwesterly flows. Another 7 just over the top of the UK. So right at the end of the run, if you do add up all of those runs that are retrogressing that high pressure out further into the Atlantic towards Canada and Greenland, you could say about 70% of them, perhaps 75%. Probably about 70% of them showing that. So it is a trend in the longer term. Again, things can change, but we'll have to keep an eye, of course, what's going to be happening with that. Now, if we do finally have a look at the UK Met Office run, have a look at precipitation and temperature, again, nothing too different than what we've been looking at the last few days. Generally, fog around tonight, especially across northern areas, and we'll have a look at the weather warning in a minute. Now, tomorrow, there's going to be a lot more cloud around with more of a southerly flow, so a lot more cloud, maybe to keep those temperatures actually further down, and of course, there will be fog in a few places. Tomorrow night into Sunday, bit of a weather front moving across the north. Could move southwards for the early hours of Sunday, but it doesn't look like it's going to be coming too much, just a few showers here or there. And then we go back into high pressure, inversion in the south, maybe a few more showers in the north, but nothing too crazy. By Wednesday, potentially a bit of a weather front further northwards, and still things really dry in the south. Now, if we do have a look at the max temperatures, you can see earlier this morning, really quite chilly, -1, -2 degrees. Of course, today temperatures around 4 to 6, maybe 7 degrees. A few areas actually in the far southeast got up to 8 or 9, but some areas in the Midlands stayed around 1 or 2 degrees under fog. So real variable temperatures, all depends on cloud amounts and sunshine as well. Of course, tonight again, another widespread frost, really quite cold, down to freezing widely. And then as we head towards Saturday afternoon, a really quite cold day really, under that trap cloud, maybe 4 or 5 degrees for the highs. Further northwards, much colder, far south, southwest, maybe 7 or 8 degrees potentially. Over the course of Saturday evening, again, not dropping too cold, maybe around 3, 4, 5 degrees, but not frosts as we've had recently, as a cloud is keeping those temperatures up. And then for Sunday afternoon, widely, sort of 7 or 8 degrees in the south, but much colder in the north, and a real cold early morning on Monday, freezing widely across many southern areas, and Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, real harsh frost overnight. And that conditions are going to continue. Monday's going to be a chilly day, 5 to 7 degrees again. We just stay in the inversion pattern with widespread frost once again across England and Wales, and East England, Southwest England over the course of Tuesday. Tuesday, actually not a too bad day, 7 to 8 degrees, maybe 10 or 11 across Ireland, and early hours of Wednesday, another frost in the south, but you can see a bit milder air mixing of air, pushing into the northwest, turning things a little bit milder. So rinse and repeat really over the next week, some up and down with the temperatures, but most areas are going to stay with what they've had over the last few days. So in the south, in England, Wales, chilly days, 7, 8 degrees, but pleasant in the sunshine. Very cold nights. A couple days here or there could have those nights staying above freezing. And across the north, generally conditions are going to be mild, 8, 9 degrees, especially for this time of year in the north. Really, it is mild because average highs in the north is normally around 4 or 5 degrees this time of year. So 8 or 9 degrees in the north. Overnight staying above freezing, maybe slightly below freezing in a few spots over the course of the weekend, but nothing too crazy. Just similar conditions to what we've had now. Now, if we do finish up, we do have a fog warning across parts of the Midlands into northern and northeastern England and parts of East Anglia and maybe parts of eastern Wales as well. 7 p.m. tonight until 11 a.m. tomorrow, fog patches will form during the evening and then become widespread overnight. Could be travel disruption again. 50 to 100 metres visibility. Again, these are estimates because it's very difficult to forecast where fog is going to form. So these are the areas with the highest chance, but elsewhere still could see some low fog, low visibility and some fog over the next sort of 12 hours. So do stay up to date with that. Make sure you don't take any risks, of course, in the fog, and do stay alert if you are going into some foggy conditions. And of course, those fog will keep those temperatures down as well. So it could be some slick ice conditions even into the day tomorrow when the sun comes up, because that fog can keep the temperatures really low at the surface. So do stay aware to that. So things are not really changing too much. There are some longer term hints of retrogression, could be turning things colder, but we're not seeing anything too crazy at this stage. I'll only really call something out if we're seeing it in the next sort of 7 days, because of the amount of disappointment we've had really in that 7 to 10 day time frame over the last few weeks and the last month really. So I don't really want to say anything is guaranteed or has a high chance really until we see it coming into the 7 day time frame. So we'll have to keep an eye, of course, what happens with that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribing new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.